Hey, sorry if the video quality and sound quality is a little lower than normal. The GorillaPod I normally use is missing its base plate, so I can't set up my DSLR very effectively. I've tried a few different setups, it hasn't worked. So I'm just shooting this on my phone, which is probably for the best anyway, because I've probably spent too much time fighting around trying to get video setups looking better rather than actually just shooting some videos. So it's coming up to Christmas. It's an insane time of year. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that. I've been thinking about a lot of things, and the whole idea of the purpose of celebration and festival has kind of come up quite a few times for me, and it sort of links into a bunch of other stuff I've been thinking about. Quite often we on the left get caught up in issues that concern either the mind or the body, theory and praxis. Theory is all about making sure that your ideas make sense and that you're logically consistent and that you're sort of coming from a place of compassion rather than falling into hierarchies, but it's still a very intellectual kind of a pursuit of compassion. Well, praxis, of course, is about actually doing things. It's about the tangible, sort of more body-related things. It's about making sure people's material needs are taken care of. But I feel like that there's an aspect of human life that quite often gets missing from this equation, which is the spirit. And I don't mean that in some kind of mystical, religious kind of a way, although it does include that. But I just mean the simple things of finding places of joy. This is actually the start of the joy-focused week in Advent in the Christian tradition, which so that makes this video, which is a coincidence with this video, but it just happens to be timed with that. But I think joy is something that that we on the left kind of need to reclaim, really, because there's a lot of fear and anger and frustration that seems to drive a lot of the political right. And it also drives a lot of stuff on the left as well. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of positive emotions as well that I think when the left is functioning at its best, it's driven by those positive emotions of radical hope, of joy, of pride, of acceptance, and all this other stuff. And I think that those are important things to for us to remain in touch with, not just as people on the political left, but also just as human beings. Like with everything, we don't just want to create a better world for people who agree with us politically. We want to create a better world for everyone. And because this is such a fundamental part of being a human, we need to make sure that more people are experiencing this. And also I think if people have regular experiences of feeling joy and acceptance and community and all these other things that are just really healthy for the human spirit, I think that you get fewer people feeling isolated, you get fewer people feeling disconnected and alienated, and all those things that end up leading people to having sort of more right-wing and authoritarian political views. It's because people fall into that stuff because, for want of a better way of putting it, they're spiritually malnourished. They are deprived of hope and joy and all these other things, and they are looking desperately for something to blame, a problem that's causing this feeling that they can get rid of. Whereas if you can find sources of that, then you don't need to go after something that's hurting you because you know that you can still access it. I think it's really important that we remind not only ourselves but others of our humanity. And unfortunately, a lot of notions of celebration and festival and all these other things that are really, really immensely powerful tools for re-engaging with the things that sort of keep us human and compassionate, is that they get co-opted by corporatism and consumerism. The fact that Christmas starts before Halloween, and the fact that Australia is only adopting Halloween now because there's enough consumerism attached to it for it to be profitable. It makes no sense here. It's late spring when Halloween happens. There's nothing spooky about October the 31st in Australia. The sun doesn't set until about 9 o'clock. It is bright outside. So there's doing all this skeleton stuff makes no sense. Anyway, that's a little sidetrack. So what do? If the existing festivals that we have pretty much inevitably get co-opted by corporatism, but it's still really important to have things, then what do we do? I personally think that there's absolutely no reason why we can't start up our own traditions within whatever community that we're already part of. So, for example, I've got a friend who he and his wife for quite some years now have done a winter long table dinner. Like, there's sort of like a really solid community of friends that kind of surround this couple. And so, at some point in winter, ideally around the solstice, but in years like this year, it can be as late as October. They'll just have everyone round, and there'll be some kind of theme, and there'll be wine, and there'll be food, and everyone will just hang out and just spend time together. And it's wonderful. It's just the community just spending some time just celebrating in the middle of winter, which, like, because it's Australia and we've kind of kept the calendar dates of everything that's been imported from the Northern Hemisphere, means that all of these winter festivals happen in the middle of summer for us, which is really weird. So having something like that in the middle of winter is actually really good. And it's not something that, would be spread out beyond that group, and I don't think it needs to be, because it's a tradition that makes sense for that community. I don't think there's any reason why more people can't do things like that, why more people can't find a way of celebrating and coming together and just reminding ourselves, about the communities that we're a part of, why that's important, and just fill each other up and just feel some joy for a little while. There's more and more people doing Friendsgiving, which I think is a fantastic idea. Which is, again, it's about going with the community of people who are actually your community, rather than just sticking with family obligations. Which, as important as family is, not everyone has a great family life. Sometimes it's more painful to be around your family than it is good, and that's okay. I don't think there's anyone who would choose to have a poor family relationship over a good one, but at the same time, you have to acknowledge sometimes it's just not worth it. And if it's just going to fill you with more stress than it is joy, then it kind of defeats the purpose. I guess what I'm saying with all this is that we're currently being starved of regular access to our humanity, and I think we have ways of reclaiming. It will take a bit of ingenuity, it will take some courage, but I think that, it's also not too hard if you've got any friends at all, to start up a regular, once a year, once a season, twice a year, whatever's going to work, thing where you all just get together and share a meal, because what is more human than eating together? And there are ways of taking it even a step further than that. I've had an idea of having, and feel free to steal this, by the way, if you like the idea, but of having a they day where every single person goes by they, them pronouns for the duration of the day. For no other reason than to get, for people to practice using those pronouns at all for a start, because they're on their way in. Get used to it. But also, I think, from a more, classical feminist perspective of just having a time where you just have a couple of less barriers between people, where gender becomes less of a barrier. Obviously, everyone's still exactly who they are. No one has to behave any different to normal, but where you just try and use gender-neutral pronouns for a while. So, that's the thing. You can come up with other ideas depending on what's going to work for you. And the people that you want to celebrate with. But please, make sure you celebrate. Please remember and remind those around you that there are wonderful things about being alive and being a human. That there are good times to be had, that it is wonderful to be part of a community. Shared meals is universal human culture, and it's wonderful. In multicultural societies, we have so much access to so much food, and that is something worth celebrating. So find what it is you want to celebrate. Find the people you want to celebrate it with, and please, for the love of all that is good about humanity, make sure you continue celebrating. Make sure that you have festivals. Be a little debaucherous. Let loose once in a while, because it's really unhealthy not to. I hope this is helpful for you. If you're interested, I recently did a 2-hour live stream with my friend Catherine, who I've done some editing for. and Damon Garcia, who, as a YouTuber, I respect immensely. Go check his channel out. He talks a lot about the intersection of leftist politics and radical Christianity, which is a fantastic combination, I have to say. It was a great chat. I had a good time. I woke up at 5 a.m. just to be on it, and I do not regret that decision even a little bit. So definitely go check that out. We briefly touch on the Vervis Manifesto, which I wrote a while back, which I'll have a link to probably up now on the end screen. So yeah, go out there, have a good time, remember to celebrate, remember why you're alive, and until next time, much love.